Hey everyone. Sorry that it's so late. This is going to be really quick, so I'm not going to do the hotline tonight. I mean, if we get any calls, that's fine. I'll answer. Um, I'm not sure if I will be getting any calls. Let me see. Yeah, so that is on there, but like I said, I'm not planning on there being any calls, and I'm just doing a quick update. Well, I just wanted to let you guys know that I just got this book. It's backwards on the thing, but it's the North Carolina Family and Related Laws. Um, and so it's the 2018 edition, so it's fairly new. Um, and it's got like all the different regulations and everything in it, all the codes for family law and similar laws in North Carolina. So um, I'm gonna try to read that. Um, hopefully within the next few months, but I would say I'm at least hoping to be done with it in the next year. Um, I want to try to get some post-its and highlighters, hopefully ones that don't bleed through, so that I can go through that and categorize all of the laws that I think are helpful. And we may discuss some on this channel, but I haven't started reading it yet. But what I was wanting to do tonight is I got this, which is a family law quick study for law students. And I was wanting to go over some of the regulations and stuff in here because it's just like a short little thing. It's not a whole lot. And then I also got this one, which is another quick study for evidence. So this is the based on the federal rules for evidence. And so we're not going to go over this one tonight, but if anyone's interested in that, we'll, definitely read that at some point. Um, maybe even next week, I don't know, but if y'all are interested in that, then we might do a show where I read evidence and what constitutes as that, because it is kind of related to our case. Because for one, um, CPS has to supposedly get evidence, and also we have to get evidence in our favor to combat their evidence. So, I figured it might still be useful. And I've been involved with not just corrupt CPS cases, but other corrupt like cases in law anyway. So it probably would be good for other things, otherwise. Um, but I did want to let everyone know I am going to do the meditation video this week. Again, I'm sorry it's so late that I'm getting on here, and that's going to be kind of short tonight. I've just been wiped out, tired for the last week, really, but the last few days, especially, I don't know if I'm sick or what's wrong with me. I've just been so exhausted and tired that it was all that I could do to take care of the house and the animals and get my schoolwork done. So I've been having it rough the last few days, but I'm not really sure what's wrong with me. It's like I'm sick. It's like I feel sick, but I don't think I'm actually sick. So I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe it's just from, vacation and all the excitement and traveling and stuff I did, maybe. And it's just all caught up with me. I'm not really sure. But it's letting you guys know some things that are coming out on the channel. I am going to do the meditation video this week. I probably won't be doing it as a live, um, because I don't know. I just, with it being meditative or a guided meditation, and the first meditation that we're going to do, because it was requested of me by a few people, is the meditation to like connect with your children, and like in the spiritual realm or astral realm or whatever realm you want to call it. But basically to get in a meditative state and to send positive energy and messages to your children, you know. Um, and so that's the first one that we're going to try to do. And so because it has to be meditative and everything, I don't really want to do it as a live in case I were to be interrupted. And so I would just want to make a video on it where I can have the music ready or I could add music to it. And, you know, if I were to get interrupted, then I could cut that part of the video out so that it doesn't interfere with anyone's meditation. So that is coming up on the channel. And there's also another video that I want to do because there were some comments that I got on the channel recently that was, they weren't really directly negative towards me, but they were negative comments, like actually opposing CPS, but I just didn't feel comfortable with some of the statements that were being said. And basically, I responded as such to them. And they said that pretty much because I believe in being merciful and forgiving my enemies, that I'm going to be a victim of my life and all this stuff. And so, you know, the way that I see it is no, I'm not a victim, actually, because I am saying that I am going to give another human being that wronged me mercy instead of passing judgment on them. I don't believe it's for me to pass judgment on anybody. And I believe, though, the way I feel is I actually feel empowered by saying that I would show them mercy. Because in order to show mercy, you have to be in a position to actually be causing harm to that person anyway. And it's like, I know that I could do those things, but I choose not to do those things. And I choose to live in forgiveness. And I feel like I'm not a victim. That's me taking responsibility for, I guess, just being a decent human being and bearing my weight in the world appropriately and not making the world a worse place than what it already is. Um, and so, and I was talking to my boyfriend Alex about what was being said in that, you know, that I'm not a victim, you know, that I'm a survivor and that I'm actually a warrior. And so, there's another video I want to do for us. Um, to help empower people on the channel. It'll probably be a short video or it could be a long video. It depends on um, how long I decide to ramble for at the time. Like right now, if I were to try to do it, it would be a very short video because I just haven't been feeling good the last few days. But anyway, and we might even make a series out of it. I'm not sure, but I plan on the title of the video being uh, Becoming the Warrior, Healing the Inner Child, um, because I don't want to really talk about it right now, but just an insider on that, I will talk about healing, like going through your healing process, especially for people who have already went through these traumatizing things, either because they were taken as a child or they lost their children, and that they need healing, you know. And in order to become the warrior, you have to heal the inner child first. And I'll explain all that whenever I do that video, like what I mean by that and why that is. But anyway, so tonight I was just wanting to go over some of the family laws. There's different sections here. They have one section which is premarital issues, and then marital agreements, and then marriage, and marital issues, premarital issues, marital issues, marital agreements, marriage, termination of marriage, and then progeny, which is probably mainly what I will be focusing on tonight because it talks about just different areas like child support, adoption, and surrogacy, and just a bunch of different little things. So I'm just going to read over the progeny section. So for you guys to see, it's this purple area, and it also goes through to the back. Down here, we also have domestic violence, but that's a very short one. And we may, we may do another talk where we do all of the marital ones. Like, I just think we should read all of those all on the same time. And I'll probably include the domestic violence on them, since most likely the domestic violence is like a relationship type situation. But anyway, so tonight I'm going to read, I'm guessing these are federal laws because it's just like one, yeah, it's the United States Supreme Court law, I think is what it is. Whereas the big book that you've seen earlier, that is only North Carolina. And the reason why I got North Carolina is because that is the state that I'm residing in. And it's also the state that my case took place in. And it's also one of the most corrupt states in the country. But mostly just because that's where I reside. So, like, if someone locally needed my help, then I'll know all about this area. But I'm sure a lot of those laws in the North Carolina law book, that there are laws similar or the same in other states, but it would just be underneath a different uh, law code. Um, I feel like that it will, that's what I was wanting to say, is that I feel like it will give me a more general knowledge of law, because I found out that if you read 3 books in any subject, that you'll know more than 90% of people do about that subject. And starting out with the Law, Statute, and Regulations book in North Carolina. So I just feel like in general, it will increase my knowledge about family law anyway, but then specifically about North Carolina because that's where I live. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the section called progeny. I think this is just like anything to do with children instead of it being the marital stuff. Okay, so let's see. Non-marital children no longer illegitimacy. Common law, 1, parents never married or married after birth. 2, father under no legal duty to support child. 3, child could not inherit from parents. So I guess that's what the term common law means as far as prodigy. Probably a lot of this is going to be focused on fathers, because I see a lot of stuff to do with where did it go? Paternity. Yeah. So modern presumption of legitimacy. 1, child is born during course of valid marriage. 2, child legitimized by subsequent marriage of natural parents. 3, legitimized by written acknowledgement of paternity. 4, legitimized by judicial order. Note the term illegitimacy has been abolished in most jurisdictions. Okay, right. So this is basically saying, I guess this really ain't much of an issue anymore, but where a child is considered to be illegitimate, this would be how, like, what would make them legitimate, as in make them have a mother and a father. So establishment of paternity. 1, petition can be filed by any man or woman believing he or she has parented a child. 2, claims regularly pursued by state agencies to establish and collect child support. 3, genetic testing results, commonly required upon to determine paternity, indicate probability of paternity. 4, indigent defendant in paternity dispute entitled to blood testing at state expense to establish paternity. 5, punitive father prohibited from bringing paternity suit against married couple. Impact couple, Michael H. versus Gerald D. 491 U.S. 110. Rehearing denied, 492 U.S. 937, 1989. 6. Statutes of limitations on paternity claims, generally 18 years. Well, no kidding. Adoption. 1. Adoption decree terminates the legal relationship between the adoptee and all biological relatives and replaces it with new ties to the adoptive family. Adoptee is treated as a legitimate blood descendant of the adopter for all purposes. 2. New birth certificate issued for adopting parents and child. Oh, I didn't even know that. That's something else that I was wondering too, is how adoptions affect birth certificates. So now we know they get a new birth certificate. Statutory proceedings. 1. Generally, any person may petition for adoption. Florida prohibits 2 single people from adopting together. 2. Adoption is a 2-step process. A. Rights and responsibilities of child and birth parents terminated. B. Rights and responsibilities of adoptive parent and child created by judicial decree. 3. Most important consideration is the child's best interests. 4. Other factors include home environment, health and emotional wellness of parents, age, finances, religion, and race. 5. Government may subsidize adoption for hard-to-place children. 6. Open adoption permits post-adoption contact between adoptive child and birth parents. 7. International adoption requires adoptive parents to satisfy foreign state requirements for adoption in addition to home state adoption rules. U.S. is signatory to the Hague Convention on the Protection of Children and Cooperation in respect of inter-country adoption. 8. Adoption records are generally sealed, showing of good cause necessary to obtain records. 9. Birth parent consent to adoption required unless waived by court order. A. Validity of consent. Consent valid when executed. Statutory waiting period until consent of birth mother may be obtained. Pre-birth consent of birth mother generally void. B. Revocability of consent. Can only be revoked based on fraud or duress. Some jurisdictions permit statutory period for revocation of consent for older children unless child is in adoptive placement. 10. Most jurisdictions also require the consent of the minor child adoptee age 13 and older. 11. Some jurisdictions also permit adult adoptions of adult adoptees for limited lawful purposes. Constitutional issues. 1. Equal protection. Mother and father should be treated equally when both have existing relationship with child. 2. Due process. Father must be given notice of proceeding when he has promptly taken responsibility for a child and demonstrated a full commitment to his parental responsibilities. Lear versus Robertson, 463 U.S. 248, 1983. A. No notice requirement when failure to assert parental interest. B. Alleged abandonment induced by fraud is basis for restoring parental rights. In response, petition of Kirshner, 649, NE 2D 324. I think this says Illinois 1995. I might be wrong about that. C. Putative father registry. Constitutional to require putative father to register with state registry where he intends to assert parental rights. One majority of the states now utilize some variation of this public registry to administered by the state. 3. A properly registered putative father can preserve his objection to the placement of his child for adoption. Okay. Adoption jurisdiction. 1. State of child's domicile. 2. State where adoptive parents domiciled when child in court. 3. State where biological parents reside at child's birth. Jessica DeBoer versus DeBoer, 509 U.S. 1301, 1993. 4. Indian Child Welfare Act, designed to preserve Native American heritage by limiting adoption alternatives outside federally recognized Indian tribes. A. States may also promulgate state versions of ICWA. B. ICWA gives placements preferences to 1. Extended family members. 2. Other members of child's tribe. 3. Other Native American families. I feel like we need something like this. I feel like this should be a law for every family. Like, I feel like even if the parental, the parent cannot legally have their child, that we should at least have some input as to where they end up. Inheritance rights. 1. Adopted child treated as a member of adoptive family. 2. Rights of inheritance from natural parents terminated. Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997, 42 U.S.C. 1305. 1. To promote the adoption of children in foster care. 2. Child's health and safety are the main concerns. A. Reasonable efforts shall be made to preserve and reunify families. Tort of wrongful adoption. 1. Common law fraud action against adoption agency. Ross versus Louise Wise Serves, Inc. 868 NE2D 189, New York 2007. 2. Negligence and misrepresentation theories. I want to look more into that, of the wrongful adoption, negligence and misrepresentation theories. Equitable adoption. 1. Generally applied only after the death of prospective adoptive parent. Modern cases expand the doctrine to apply during the party's lifetime. Jeremifer versus Jeremifer, 688, A2D 475, and I'm not sure where that is, if that's Minnesota, I'm not sure. Special App 1997. Consequences of adoption. 1, legal status of child after adoption is equal to the status of a natural born child. Assisted pregnancy. Artificial insemination. 1, many jurisdictions presumption of legitimacy with written consent of husband and wife. A, husband is legally considered natural father of offspring. 2, ethical issues. Transfer of frozen sperm, eggs, and embryos without knowledge of donor. Physicians generally have legal obligation to confirm signature and consent. 3, Uniform Putative and Unknown Fathers Act. Semen donor in artificial insemination is excluded as a putative father. Surrogacy. 1, gestational surrogacy. A, when the surrogate does not contribute her genetic material to the embryo and pregnancy is through in vitro fertilization and embryo transfer, the gestational surrogate then carries and delivers the baby but does not have a direct genetic tie to the baby. B, several states have banned surrogacy contracts and services. 2, traditional pregnancy. When the surrogate contributes her own egg to the creation of the embryo and pregnancy is usually achieved by artificial insemination, the traditional surrogate then carries and delivers the baby. 3, egg donation. A, the removal of one or more eggs from donor and the transfer of those eggs to either the intended mother or a surrogate. B, egg donation requires the use of advanced reproductive technology, ART, to retrieve the donated eggs from the donor, form embryos in the laboratory, and then transfer the embryos to the intended mother or to the gestational surrogate who carries for the intended parents. Child support. 1, both parents owe duty of support to minor children they have in common. 2, child support is calculated using state child support guidelines as the presumptive amount owed for support. Family Support Act of 2000. Courts must explicitly justify deviation from guidelines in writing or on the record. A, additional costs such as child's medical expenses or child care costs may be added to base child support award. 3, income shares model is most popular approach, combines net income of obliger and obligee for guidelines obligation. 4, child support orders entitled to full faith and credit. FSCC SOA 28 USC 1738B. 5, child support obligations usually set forth in final decree of divorce or final judgment of paternity. 6, child support payments are not income for federal income tax purposes. An obliger cannot deduct payments. They cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. 7, child support payments, in addition to spousal support payments, can be enforced through civil contempt and incarceration. Other enforcement methods include income deduction order, occupational and/or driver's license suspension, interception of tax refunds, and passport denial. Modification. 1, substantial change in circumstances. A, remarriage and/or after-born children cannot be used as basis to reduce one's child support payments. B, employment change. A voluntary reduction in income does not justify a child support modification. Cardoff versus Cardoff, 58 SO3D 527, Louisiana, 2011. 2, Obliger cannot voluntarily reduce support payments. Duration 1. Generally until child reaches maturity, unless child physically or mentally dependent and unable to support self. Child support jurisdiction 1. Non-resident spouse. A. Test. Is there sufficient purposeful contact with state to make it fair and reasonable for court to adjudicate claim against non-resident spouse? 2. Social Security Act of 1984, Title IV-D, requires states as condition of receiving federal welfare payments to implement procedures for enforcing child support. A. Individuals do not have federal right to enforce state agency to substantially comply with Title IV-D. Blessing versus Freestone, 520 U.S. 329, 1997. 3. URESA, reciprocity between states, has been replaced by the Uniform Interstate Family Act Support, UIFSA. A. Designed to establish a uniform set of rules to determine which state has jurisdiction to make or modify support orders. B. Specifies 8 circumstances where a court can exercise personal jurisdiction over a non-resident individual. Okay, now we're starting to get to more of the stuff that we're interested in. Children, parental rights. Custodial relationships. 1. Natural parents are presumed fit and have a fundamental right to rear their children. 2. Both parents, regardless of gender, are presumed equally fit for custody of children. 3. Legal custody, the right to participate in major decision making for the child. 4. Physical custody, the right to have the child reside or visit for a defined period of time. 5. Joint legal and physical custody, a parent's right to equal participation in major decision making for the child and to spend relatively equal time with the child. 6. Modern trend, to create parenting plans to allocate parental responsibility for the child. 7. Custodial presumptions such as primary caretaker doctrine and tender years doctrine may be used as factors but not as legal presumptions. Custodial standard is best interest of the child. 1. Factors generally include parental wishes regarding custody, child's wishes regarding custody, relationship between child and parents, sibling relationships, school community rewards, and mental and physical health of parents. UMDA 402. 402. States also include other factors such as domestic violence and friendly parent provisions. 2. May not deny shared parental responsibility, custody, or visitation because a parent or grandparent has AIDS. 3. Negative parenting factors must be examined with nexus tests to show detriment to the child. 4. May not use race as a basis for custody determination. Palmore versus Sidoti, 472 SO 2D 843, Florida District Court App, 1985. 5. When there are religious differences between divorcing parents, courts cannot favor one religious tradition over another. Cigar versus Cigar, 781 NE 2D 54, Massachusetts, 2003. But notice it did not mention anything about disabilities. In fact, it actually says that if they can prove that you have a issue mentally or physically, then that can be used as like factors why you can't have your child. Custodial modification. 1. General requirement to establish significant substantial change in circumstances affecting child's welfare. 2. Relocation factors including existing arrangements, child's attachment to each parent, child's ties to community, and child's wishes and ability to travel for visitation. A. Modern trend. Fact-based examination with no presumption in favor of or against relocation. 3. Parenting coordinators. Frequently used in high conflict cases where parents are unable to communicate. 4. Pregnancy leave. Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978 protects and treats pregnancy as medical condition. 5. Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993, FMLA, provides work leave to employee when a qualifying condition met. Child abuse and neglect. State intervention must be necessary to protect child from real, immediate physical harm, given the constitutional right to family integrity. State intervention. 1. Goal of dependency proceedings is to rehabilitate parent and reunite family. Adoption Assistance and Child Welfare Act incorporated into Title IV-E of Social Security Act. 2. As level of state interference increases, so too does evidentiary proof requirement. 3. Many states provide court-appointed counsel to parents in dependency proceedings. Grounds for state intervention. Dependency. Hold on. This is the part we're really interested in, so let me make sure I'm speaking clearly. Grounds for state intervention. Dependency. 1. Abuse, abandonment, and neglect. Some states merge all forms into one category known as dependency. CA Welf and Inst Code 300. A. Types of neglect: physical, emotional, medical, and failure to protect. B. Types of abuse: physical, emotional, mental, and sexual. 2. Reporting requirements. All states require child care professionals, doctors and nurses, etc., to report suspected child abuse and neglect. States grant some form of immunity for good faith compliance. 3. Child abuse victims' testimony. Potential hearsay and confrontation clause issues. Children presumed competent as witnesses. FRE 601. 4. Government has no affirmative duty to protect child from harm by private persons, even if the state is aware of the danger. Dasani versus Winnebago, County Department of Social Services, 489 U.S. 189, 1989. 5. Once state removes a child, state must find an appropriate placement. 6. Parent entitled to proof of unfitness. State bears burden of proving grounds for removal. 7. Disposition alternatives. A. Foster care. Most courts refuse to recognize the liberty interest of foster parents. Therese B. versus Commer of Children and Families, 68 CT App 223. Okay, CT App. I think that might be Connecticut. I'm not sure. 2001. B. Least restrictive means required for child placement. Relatives may be appropriate placement. C. Children in state care entitled to permanency. Adoption and Safe Families Act, ASFA. D. Parent given case plan to remediate parenting defects. ASFA generally requires state to pursue termination if child has been in foster care for 15 to 22 preceding months. Now, mind you, foster care is actually considered to be any placement other than you. So just keep that in mind. Termination of parental rights. 1. Termination may be voluntary or involuntary. A. Voluntary. Natural parent surrenders child to state, executes surrender document, no fraud or duress. B. Involuntary. Natural parents adjudicated unfit. C. Indigent parent entitled to appellate review of sufficiency of evidence, MLB versus SLJ, 519 U.S. 102, 1996, which I went through the appellate court. D. The minimum standard of proof set by U.S. Supreme Court in termination cases is clear and convincing evidence. Santosky versus Kramer, 455 U.S. 745, 1982. E. ICWA requires proof beyond reasonable doubt. I feel like it should be that in every case, not just with the Indian Children Welfare Act. But anyway. F. Grounds for termination. 1. Abandonment. 2. Unfitness. 3. Abuse. 4. Most jurisdictions have promulgated substantial statutory provisions to justify termination. 2. Divorce does not terminate non-custodial parents' rights or responsibilities to his or her child. 3. Defenses. Constitutional grounds for involuntary termination. A. Notice required by due process. B. Right to counsel. Indigent not automatically entitled. Factors include 1. Parents and child's interest in stable home. 2. Government's interest in welfare of child. 3. Risk of erroneous deprivation. C. Void for vagueness. Statute must be explicit so that it informs fairly and reasonably of forbidden conduct, or at least it should. Grandparent or third party visitation rights. 1. Visitation rights upheld. King versus King, 828 SW 2D 630, Kentucky, 1992, but with limitations. Troxel versus Granville, 530 U.S. 57 2000. Hold on, my PlayStation decided to think that it heard me. It thought I was talking to it. 2. Modern trend. Expand rights of third parties as consistent with best interest of child. Child custody jurisdiction. UCCJEA replaces UCCJA. 1, purpose and intent is to promote jurisdictional uniformity in child custody proceedings and deter wrongful removal of children from state court jurisdiction. 2, UCCJEA jurisdiction. A, exclusive continuing jurisdiction. Continues jurisdiction after relocation provided ongoing forum contacts. B, home state jurisdiction. State where child resided with parents 6 months prior to commencement of action. C, no home state jurisdiction. Significant connections test when no home state under the Act. D, emergency jurisdiction. Temporary orders until child and case can be returned to proper forum. E, continuing jurisdiction. Provided in cases where a child is wrongfully removed or withheld from forum state. F, international jurisdiction. Provides enforcement mechanism from forum court orders. 3, federal exercise of diversity and tort claim. Ankenbrandt versus Richards, 504 U.S. 689, 1992. 4, parental abduction. State statutory responses include provisions in UCCJEA and state criminal codes. B, International Parental Kidnapping Act, IPKA, 18 USC 1204. 1, criminal sanctions for a parent to wrongfully remove or retain a child outside the U.S. 2, limited affirmative defenses. C, Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act, PKPA, 28 USC 1738. Requires full faith and credit to custodial determination of sister states, even where state would have jurisdictional basis, to facilitate enforcement of custody decrees and to deter kidnapping. And this, I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know if it's Hodge or Hog. I'm just going to say it like, I think it might be Hog, because it's kind of, I don't know, we're just going to say Hodge. Convention on Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction. 1, unilateral and bilateral treaty on private international law implemented in the U.S. through the International Child Abduction Remedies Act, ICARA, 42 U.S.C. 11601-11610. 2, countries must be treaty members to apply convention remedies. A, primary remedy is prompt return of child wrongfully removed or retained from habitual residence. B, must establish that petitioner has rights of custody that were actually being exercised when wrongful removal or retention occurred. C, limited defenses under convention. D, summary proceedings designed for resolution with 6-week time frame. E, convention law supersedes state law and court prohibited from best interest analysis under state child custody laws. Decisions under the convention are not custodial determinations. F, concurrent jurisdiction in state and federal court. Common law emancipation. This is the last one. 1, removes certain disabilities of minority, even the age of majority. A, releases parents from certain obligations to their minor children. B, allows minors to free themselves from parental control before adulthood. And so that is all the ones that we have that's like non-marital on this. And so we may talk more about the marital ones. But you see how long that kind of took to read? I think it took about 30 minutes to read that. And that's only like from here to here. So a little over a whole page. So we may break this up into sections or something. I'm not sure. Like, I don't know. We might do another day, we might do the premarital and then the marital agreements and marriage and marital issues. And then another day, or, just that. And then another day, do the termination of marriage, marital issues, and domestic violence. Um, so yeah, we'll see about all that. But I just thought it would be good to have that on hand because it gives you a lot of terms that, we don't use in everyday life. And so, the court uses different terminology than we do. They speak a different language, more or less. That's another thing that I was wondering about, which I may just pose this as a question in a totally different video than this. But I was at one time reading the U.S. Supreme Court laws for like appealing. I think you'll see them on my channel somewhere where I was reading out of that book. And if people would like me to continue with that, because I was listing like what the actual code is, and everything it says underneath that chapter. So if y'all would like me to continue to do that, then I will do that because, you can call the U.S. Supreme Court and get that booklet yourself. But I think some people just prefer hearing somebody read it. Like for me, I prefer to read something than to hear someone read it because I feel like I can understand it better if I read it myself than if I listen to someone say it. But other people feel overwhelmed, I guess, by reading it and they would rather someone read it to them. And so, you know, I've thought about continuing doing that just because, it's not that hard to do and there's really no other people doing it. But yeah, so that's all that we're going to do tonight. And I'm going to study the North Carolina family law and try to remember it and make sense out of it. And hopefully it'll be able to help some of us. But again, remember, I am going to do that meditation video this week. I might try to record it tomorrow, depending on how I feel. But I'm going to try to get it out there because I know you guys have been asking me about it and that you need it. And I'm going to do some other videos as well. That's kind of the next meditation is going to be for your relationship with your children. Whether you've already had your rights terminated or they're just not in your custody right now. And you can use that too for anyone other than just your kids even. So we might do one on that, and we might do another one for trying to develop or have good energy between you and your caseworker. So we may do another one on that, on the caseworker, and maybe another meditation for forgiveness and healing, where you go back and you forgive yourself or you forgive the people that were involved that hurt you in your case and everything. So, there's a lot of different things we can do with the meditation, but even for those of you who don't believe in that type of thing, as far as spiritual stuff, the series, either the video that I'm going to do or the series that we're going to do on becoming the warrior, healing the inner child, um, will be good for you guys because anybody of any faith can do that. Um, but yeah, so that was a little bit longer than what I thought it would. We actually almost took up the whole hour. Um, so yeah, if anyone wants to leave any comments, feel free to do so. I'm gonna put the group stuff after the video. I didn't do it immediately last time, and I'm sorry about that. But I will make sure I do that this time. Um, for one, I think it's because like I have a new phone, and so I don't have my notes and stuff saved in there, and I don't have. I think actually I do have this YouTube account on there now, but I didn't at the time. So anyway, you guys, I hope you guys are doing well. If you would like to give me any kind of suggestions as to what kind of content you're wanting or what you feel like you need the most right now, please let me know. Um, and I'm always willing to help you out. And if I can't help you, I can at least talk to you and listen to you about your situation. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to. Again, I'm going to put the Facebook groups below this video so you can actually see it for yourself. And don't be afraid to post stuff to it. Feel free to post stuff to it. um it's for like-minded people, and people who are not like-minded and want to criticize other people will be immediately removed from the group. So just keep that in mind. No criticizing each other. So anyway, I love you all, and thank you for being here. Thank you for watching these videos, and thank you for supporting this channel and supporting this cause. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great week.